Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stepped out of the fighting ring. The crowd in the underground arena on New Texas cheered loudly. He had just won another match, but the prize money was barely enough to pay his rent. Life on the colony world was hard, and fighting was one of the few ways to make decent money. Lisa Carter, his friend and manager, handed him a towel. She was a smart woman who handled all his fights and kept him out of trouble. "Good fight, Jake. That guy was tough, but you made it look easy." Jake smiled and shrugged. Just another day at work. He was a former Marine who had served on 3 different worlds before settling on New Texas. Fighting came naturally to him, and he was good at it. Very good. As they walked toward the exit, Lisa's communication device started beeping. She looked at the screen and frowned. "That's weird. I'm getting a message from off-world. The signal is coming from really far away." Jake stopped walking. Off-world messages were expensive and rare. Most people on New Texas never got calls from other planets, let alone other star systems. Who would be calling us? Lisa activated the message, and a hologram appeared in front of them. The figure was definitely not human. It stood about 6 feet tall, had green scaly skin and yellow eyes that moved independently of each other. Jake had seen pictures of aliens before, but this was his first time seeing one in person, even as a hologram. "Greetings, human warrior." "Jake Morrison," the alien said in perfect English, though his voice sounded like he was speaking through water. "My name is Vex, and I represent the Galactic Combat Federation. I bring you an invitation that could change your life." Jake and Lisa looked at each other. Neither of them knew what the Galactic Combat Federation was, but it sounded important. Vex continued speaking. "Every solar cycle, the greatest warriors from across the galaxy gather on Zentara Prime for the ultimate combat tournament. Representatives from hundreds of worlds compete for glory and prizes worth more money than most planets see in a decade." The hologram showed images of a massive arena filled with strange creatures Jake had never imagined. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking rocks, and some seemed to be made of pure energy. The arena itself was huge, bigger than any building Jake had ever seen. "Humanity has recently joined the Galactic Council," Vex explained. "As a new member species, Earth has been granted 1 slot in this tournament. We have reviewed combat records from all human colonies, and your name appeared at the top of our list." Jake felt his heart beating faster. A galactic tournament sounded incredible, but also terrifying. "Why me? There have to be better fighters out there." "Perhaps," Vex replied, "but you have an interesting record. You adapt quickly to new opponents. You think during combat instead of just reacting, and you have never given up in a fight. These qualities may serve you well against alien opponents." Lisa stepped forward. "What exactly are you offering?" "Transportation to Zentara Prime, full accommodations during the tournament, and a chance to represent your entire species. If Jake Morrison wins even a single match, he will earn more money than he could make in 10 years of fighting on New Texas. If he wins the entire tournament..." Vex paused for effect. "He becomes the richest human alive." Jake tried to imagine that much. Money. He could buy his own planet with that kind of wealth. But then reality set in. "What are my chances of winning against aliens who might be twice my size and 10 times stronger?" Vex's expression was hard to read, but Jake thought he saw something like amusement in those yellow eyes. Most of the galaxy expects humans to provide entertainment before the real competition begins. Your species is new, small, and appears physically weak compared to established warrior races. The betting odds will not be in your favor." "That doesn't sound encouraging," Lisa said. "Perhaps not," Vex agreed. "But sometimes the galaxy is wrong about things. Your species has an interesting history of warfare. You fight each other constantly, which means you have practice against opponents who think like you do. Most alien species fight very differently from humans. Jake thought about his time in the Marines. He had fought on worlds with different gravity, different atmospheres, and different terrain. He had learned to adapt quickly because his life depended on it. Maybe that experience would help. The other human colonies have already declined our invitation, Vex continued. They consider it a waste of resources. Earth's government is leaving the decision up to individual fighters. You are our last choice, Jake Morrison. That stung a little. Being someone's last choice was never flattering. But Jake had been Han. Underdog his entire life. He grew up poor, joined the military because he had no other options, and started fighting professionally because it was the only skill that paid well. Being underestimated was nothing new. What do you think, Lisa? Jake asked his friend. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the images of the alien arena, then at Jake. It's dangerous. These creatures could kill you easily, but ... She sighed. It's also the biggest opportunity you'll ever get. Win or lose, you'll be the first human to fight in a galactic tournament. That has to count for something. Jake made his decision. When do we leave? Vex's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. The tournament begins in 1 standard week. A transport ship will arrive tomorrow to take you to Centauri Prime. I should warn you, the journey takes 3 days, and you will be traveling with other competitors. Some of them may not be friendly. I can handle unfriendly, Jake said. We shall see, Vex replied. One final thing, Jake Morrison. Once you enter the tournament, you cannot withdraw. You fight until you win, or until you cannot fight anymore. Do you understand? Jake nodded. He understood perfectly. This was all or nothing. The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving Jake and Lisa alone in the empty arena. The silence felt heavy after such a momentous conversation. I can't believe you just agreed to fight aliens in space, Lisa said. Jake grinned. I can't believe it either. But I've been fighting humans my whole life. How different can it be? They both knew the answer to that question, but neither wanted to say it out loud. Very different. Possibly deadly different. But Jake Morrison had never backed down from a challenge, and he wasn't about to start now. The transport ship to Centauri Prime was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was massive, with rooms for hundreds of passengers, but most of the other fighters kept to themselves. Jake spent the 3-day journey studying his fellow competitors. From a distance, there was Krex the Destroyer, a 10-foot tall being made of what looked like living crystal. His body caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. When he walked, the metal floor rang like a bell under his weight. Then there was Zara Blackclaw, who looked like a giant wolf that walked on 2 legs. Her claws were longer than Jake's fingers, and her teeth could probably bite through steel. The most intimidating was Gorth the Immovable. He looked like a walking mountain, covered in gray rock that seemed harder than any armor Jake had seen. When Gorth moved, which wasn't often, the whole ship seemed to shake. Jake felt very small next to these creatures. He was just 6 feet, tall and weighed about 200 pounds. Next to them, he looked like a child. When they arrived at Centauri Prime, Jake's jaw dropped. The planet was covered in cities that stretched as far as he could see. The arena itself was a massive dome that could hold millions of spectators. Ships from hundreds of different worlds filled the sky, bringing visitors to watch the tournament. Lisa had traveled separately on a passenger ship and met Jake at the arena. She looked as amazed as he felt. This place is incredible, she said. There are species here I've never even heard of. The opening ceremonies were held the night before the fights began. Jake walked into a preparation room with 63 other competitors. He was the only human in the room. and everyone stared at him. Some looked curious, others looked amused, and a few seemed insulted that he was even their god announcers. Voice filled the arena as each fighter was introduced to the crowd. When Jake's turn came, he walked out into the center of the massive space. The noise was overwhelming. Millions of creatures from across the galaxy filled the seats, creating a sound like thunder that never stopped. Representing the newest member of the Galactic Council, the announcer said, from the planet Earth, Jake Morrison. The crowd's reaction was not what Jake had hoped for. First came polite clapping, then confused murmuring as the aliens got a good look at him. Finally, laughter started in one section and spread throughout the arena. They were laughing at him. Jake kept his face calm, but inside he felt angry. He had been laughed at before, and it always made him fight harder. The betting displays around. The arena showed Jake's odds at 500 to 1 against winning his first match. Most bets were on how quickly he would lose, with the average guess being less than 30 seconds. The next morning, Jake prepared for his first fight. His opponent was Thorak from the Hegemony, a species known for conquering 12 star systems. Through pure force, Thorak was 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating, and had claws that could cut through spaceship hulls. Lisa helped Jake get ready in his preparation room. "Remember," she said, "don't try to match his strength. You can't win that way. Use your speed and your brain." Jake nodded. He had watched videos of Thorak's previous fights. The alien was incredibly strong and tough, but he relied on ending fights quickly with overwhelming force. If Jake could survive the first few minutes, he might have a chance. The arena fell silent as Jake walked out to face Thorak. The two fighters stood on opposite sides of a circular fighting area protected by energy shields. The crowd's excitement was clear, but Jake could tell they expected this to be over quickly. The referee, a floating orb of light, announced the rules. No weapons, no outside help. Fight continues until one competitor surrenders or cannot continue. Then it gave the signal to begin. Thorak charged immediately, moving faster than something his size should be able to move. His plan was obvious. End the fight with one devastating attack before Jake could do anything. But Jake wasn't there when Thorak arrived. He had rolled to the side at the last second, letting the bigger alien crash into the arena wall. The crowd gasped in surprise. They hadn't expected the human to move so quickly. Thorak spun around, angry now. He had expected to win in seconds, but the tiny human was still standing. He charged again, this time swinging his massive claws in wide arcs that should have been impossible to avoid. Jake ducked under the first swing, jumped over the second, and used Thorak's own momentum to spin around behind him. As the alien stumbled forward, Jake kicked him in the back of the knee. It was a precise strike aimed at a joint, and Thorak went down hard. The crowd was no longer laughing. They were watching in stunned silence as the human continued to avoid Thorak's attacks. Every time the alien tried to use his strength advantage, Jake turned it against him. The fight continued for 10 minutes, much longer than anyone had expected. Thorak was getting tired and frustrated. His attacks became wilder and less controlled. Jake stayed calm, waiting for his opportunity. It came when Thorak tried to grab Jake with both hands. The alien overextended himself, leaving his head exposed for just a moment. Jake stepped in and delivered a precise strike to a pressure point on Thorak's neck, using a technique he had learned in the Marines. Thorak's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the arena floor, unconscious. The arena fell completely silent. For several seconds, nobody moved or made a sound. The human had won. The creature everyone expected to lose in 30 seconds had defeated one of the galaxy's most feared warriors. Then the crowd exploded. Some cheered, others shouted in disbelief, and many were clearly angry about losing their bets. The betting Displays showed Jake's odds improving dramatically, though he was still considered a long shot to win his next match. Jake helped the medical team carry Thork out of the arena. The alien would be fine, but he would have a serious headache when he woke up. As Jake walked back to his preparation room, he could hear the crowd still arguing about what they had just seen. Lisa was waiting for him with a huge smile. "That was incredible. The whole galaxy is talking about you now." Jake sat down heavily. The fight had taken more out of him than he wanted to admit. "One down? How many to go?" "If you keep winning, 6 more fights to become champion," Lisa said. "But Jake, everything just changed. You're not a joke anymore. The other fighters are going to take you seriously now." Jake nodded. He had wanted to prove that humans belonged in the tournament. Mission accomplished. But now the real work would begin. Every remaining opponent would study his fighting style and prepare specifically for him. The easy part was over. The news of Jake's victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within hours, every major news network was talking about the human who had defeated Thork. Most commentators were still calling it a lucky accident, but some were beginning to ask different questions. Jake's second opponent was Silex the Venomous, a snake-like creature from the poison worlds of Nexer. Silex was 12 feet long, could move like lightning, and had venom that could kill most species in seconds. The arena had been modified for this fight, with obstacles and hiding places that Silex could use to his advantage. In his preparation room, Jake studied videos of Silex's previous matches. The alien always used the same strategy. He would hide among the obstacles, strike quickly with his venomous bite, then retreat while his opponents slowly died. It had worked in 17 straight victories. Lisa was nervous as she helped Jake prepare. "This one is different from Thork," she said. "You can't get close to him. One bite and you're dead." Jake nodded, but he was thinking about something else. Silex always won the same way, which meant he had become predictable. The alien relied on his venom so much that he had never learned to fight any other way. The crowd was much bigger for Jake's second fight. Word had spread that the human might actually be interesting to watch. The betting odds were still against him, but not as badly as before. When the fight began, Silex immediately disappeared among the obstacles. Jake could hear him moving, but the alien was too fast to see clearly. This was exactly what Silex wanted. An opponent who couldn't find him until it was too late. But Jake didn't try to find Silex. Instead, he started destroying the obstacles. He kicked over barriers, threw rocks, and generally made as much noise and chaos as possible. The crowd thought he had panicked, but Jake had a plan. Silex needed the obstacles to hide behind. Without them, he would be exposed in the open arena. As Jake demolished more and more hiding places, Silex was forced to move constantly. The alien was getting frustrated and tired. Finally, with nowhere left to hide, Silex had to attack directly. He launched himself at Jake with incredible speed, fangs extended and ready to deliver the killing bite. Jake was ready. He had been watching Silex's movement patterns throughout the fight. At the last second, he dropped to the ground and rolled aside. Silex flew over him and crashed into the arena wall. Before the alien could recover, Jake grabbed a piece of broken obstacle and pinned Silex's head to the ground. The creature thrashed wildly, but Jake held on until Silex finally gave up and surrendered. The crowd was stunned again. Jake had defeated another supposedly superior opponent, and he had done it by thinking instead of just fighting. After the match, Galactic sports networks began analyzing Jake's fighting style more seriously. They brought in experts who had studied human warfare, and what they found was disturbing to many alien species. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a human scientist working at the Kepler-7 research station, appeared on the most popular sports show in the galaxy. She explained things about humans that most aliens had never considered. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, she said. They would chase prey across vast distances until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. This gave humans incredible endurance and the ability to keep going when others would quit. The show's host, a blue-skinned alien named Court, looked confused. But humans appear physically weak compared to most galactic species. Physical strength isn't everything, Dr. Rodriguez replied. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. They developed strategies for defeating opponents who are bigger, stronger, and better equipped. They learned to use their environment, to think creatively, and most importantly, to adapt quickly to new situations. Jake's third opponent was Corda the Swift, considered the fastest fighter in the galaxy. Corda could move so quickly that most opponents never saw him coming. His species had won every speed-based competition for the last century. This time, Jake didn't try to match his opponent's strength or speed. Instead, he focused on patience and endurance. Corda darted around the arena like a blur, attacking from different angles. But Jake defended himself carefully and didn't waste energy on attacks that couldn't connect. After 20 minutes, Corda began to slow down. His species was built for short bursts of incredible speed, not extended fighting. Jake had forced the match to go longer than Corda could maintain his advantage. When Corda finally collapsed from exhaustion, Jake was still standing and ready to fight. The pattern was becoming clear to everyone watching. Jake's fourth opponent was Nexus Prime, a warrior whose species had replaced most of their bodies with advanced technology. Nexus Prime's computer brain could calculate thousands of possible fighting scenarios in seconds and choose the perfect response to any attack. But Jake's fighting style didn't follow computer logic. He made decisions based on instinct and experience that Nexus Prime's programs couldn't predict. When the cyborg expected Jake to dodge left, he went right. When the computer calculated that Jake should retreat, he attacked instead. The fight ended when Jake did something completely illogical. He left himself open to what should have been a devastating attack, then used Nexus Prime's own momentum to throw the cyborg out of the fighting area. By the time Jake reached the quarterfinals, the entire galaxy was watching. His odds had improved to 3-1 against, and some betting houses were refusing to take bets on his matches. The other remaining fighters were the best, warriors from the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had all studied Jake's previous matches and thought they understood his tactics, but Jake kept evolving. In each fight, he used different strategies and techniques. He borrowed ideas from every opponent he had faced, combining them in ways that created entirely new fighting styles. Lisa watched from the stands as Jake prepared for his quarterfinal match. She could see that he had changed during the tournament. He was more confident now, but also more focused. The galaxy had expected him to be a quick defeat, but instead he had become something they didn't understand. The crowd isn't laughing anymore, she thought to herself. Indeed, the millions of spectators in the arena were no longer amused by the human fighter. Some cheered for him, others hoped he would lose, but none of them thought he was a joke. Jake Morrison had proven that humans belonged in the galaxy's most elite fighting competition. But more than that, he had shown that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one nobody expects to win. As he prepared for his next fight, Jake knew that everything was about to get much harder. The remaining fighters were the absolute best the galaxy had to offer, and they would be ready for him. But he was ready for them too. Jake's quarterfinal opponent was unlike anything he had faced before. Vortex was a being made of pure energy who could become solid or invisible at will. When Vortex moved through the arena, he looked like lightning dancing in the air. Most fighters had no idea how to even touch him, let alone defeat him. The crowd was bigger than ever. Jake's matches had become the most watched sporting events in galactic history. Beings from thousands of worlds had traveled to Zentara Prime just to see the human fight. The betting was now almost even, with many people believing Jake might actually win the tournament. As Jake prepared for the match, he received an unexpected message on his private communication device. The signal was encrypted and came from Earth. When he opened it, Admiral Patricia Hayes of the Earth Defense Force appeared as a hologram. "Jake," she said, "I need to tell you something important about why you're really there." Jake looked around to make sure no one could hear them, then activated the privacy shield in his room. "What do you mean?" Admiral Hayes looked serious. "The tournament invitation wasn't random. For the past year, several alien species have been watching human expansion into space. They're concerned about our military potential and want to know how dangerous we might be in the future." Jake felt cold. "You're saying this whole thing is a test?" "Exactly. Every move you make is being studied by alien military experts. They're using this tournament to figure out whether humans are a threat they need to worry about or just another weak species they can ignore." The weight of this information hit Jake hard. He wasn't just fighting for prize money or personal glory. He was representing all of humanity, and his performance would determine how other species treated humans for generations to come. "Why didn't anyone tell me this before?" Jake asked. "Because we wanted you to fight naturally, without the pressure of knowing what was really at stake. But now that you've made it this far, you need to understand the truth. Win or lose, you're changing how the galaxy sees our entire species." The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving Jake alone with this new knowledge. Everything made sense now. The odd way some aliens looked at him, the intensive analysis of his fighting style, the growing crowds. He wasn't entertainment anymore. He was a demonstration of human capabilities. When Jake entered the arena to face Vortex, he felt different. The crowd's cheers seemed louder, but also more tense. He could sense that something important was happening. Something bigger than just a fighting tournament. Vortex appeared as a swirling mass of blue and white energy. When he spoke, his voice sounded like electricity crackling. "I have studied your previous matches, human. Your tricks will not work against me. I am not bound by physical laws like the others." The fight began, and Vortex immediately became invisible. Jake could hear him moving around the arena, but couldn't see where he was. This was exactly what Vortex wanted, an opponent who couldn't fight what he couldn't find. But Jake had learned something important during his previous matches. Every opponent had weaknesses, even if those weaknesses weren't obvious. Vortex could become invisible and pass through solid objects, but he had to become solid to attack. That created a brief moment of vulnerability. Jake stood perfectly still in the center of the arena and closed his eyes. He ignored the crowd's noise and focused on the small sounds Vortex made when moving. Energy beings might not follow physical laws, but they still displaced air when they moved. When Vortex materialized behind him for an attack, Jake was ready. He spun around and grabbed the energy being while he was still solid. Vortex tried to become invisible again, but Jake held on tight and threw him toward the arena's power-dampening fields. The fields were designed to prevent electronic interference during matches, but they also disrupted Vortex's energy form. When he hit the field, he became solid and couldn't change back. Jake quickly pinned him down, and Vortex surrendered. The crowd erupted in the loudest cheers Jake had heard yet. He had defeated an opponent that many considered unbeatable. But as he looked up at the millions of spectators, Jake realized that not all of them were happy about his victory. His semifinal opponent was Grimjaw, the defending champion from the Predator clans. Grimjaw had never lost a match in 15 years of competition. He was built like a massive cat, with claws like swords and reflexes faster than anything Jake had ever seen. Before the match, Lisa met with Jake in his preparation room. She had been watching the crowd and the media coverage, and she looked worried. "Something's changing out there," she said. "Some of the alien species are getting scared of you. They're starting to wonder what humans might be capable of if one fighter can do this much damage." Jake nodded. He had sensed it too. The atmosphere around the tournament had shifted from entertainment to something more serious. Political delegations from major alien governments had arrived to watch his matches. Military analysts were studying every move he made. The fight with Grimjaw was the most brutal Jake had experienced. The Predator clan champion was everything the others had claimed to be, but weren't. He was faster than Corda, stronger than Thorak, and smarter than Nexus Prime. For the first time in the tournament, Jake found himself losing. Grimjaw's claws left deep cuts on Jake's arms and legs. His speed was so great that Jake could barely react to his attacks. The crowd watched in fascination as the human finally met an opponent who seemed to be his equal. But as the fight continued, Jake began to adapt. He started using techniques from every opponent he had faced. He used Thorak's aggressive charges when he needed to attack, Silex's patience when he needed to wait, Corda's speed when he needed to escape, and Nexus Prime's calculated precision when he needed to be exact. Grimjaw had never faced an opponent who could change fighting styles in the middle of a match. Just when the alien thought he understood Jake's pattern, the human would switch to something completely different. The turning point came when Jake stopped trying to fight like a human and started fighting like every species he had encountered. He combined their techniques in ways that created entirely new strategies. The combination overwhelmed Grimjaw, who couldn't adapt fast enough to keep up Dot when Jake finally pinned the defending champion. The arena fell silent for a long moment. Then half the crowd exploded in cheers, while the other half sat in stunned silence. Jake Morrison, the human everyone had laughed at just a week ago, was now in the tournament finals. He had defeated the greatest fighters from 7 different species, each one supposedly superior to humans in combat. As Jake left the arena, he could see alien military officers talking urgently into their communication devices. Government representatives were leaving their seats to make emergency calls. The tournament had stopped being about sports and had become about politics and power. Lisa met him at the exit with a mixture of pride and concern on her face. "One more fight, Jake, but I think you've already won something bigger than the tournament." Jake knew she was right. Win or lose in the finals, he had proven that humans were not the weak, primitive species many aliens had assumed them to be. The question now was whether that would be good or bad for humanity's future in the galaxy. The final match would determine more than just a tournament champion. It would set the course for human relations with the rest of the galaxy for decades to come. The final day of the tournament arrived with more viewers than any sporting event in galactic history. Ships from every corner of known space surrounded Centauri Prime. The planet's communication networks were overloaded with beings trying to watch Jake Morrison's final match. Jake's opponent was Warlord Kine, an ancient warrior whose species had dominated galactic combat for over 1,000 years. Kine stood 12 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin like metal armor. He had been fighting for 300 years and had never been defeated. His species considered him a living legend. In the preparation area, Jake could feel the weight of what was happening. Representatives from hundreds of governments sat in special viewing areas. Military leaders from across the galaxy had their best analysts studying every detail. This wasn't just a championship fight anymore. It was a demonstration that would shape the future of human relationships with alien civilizations. Lisa helped Jake get ready for what might be his final match. She had been watching the news feeds from Earth, where billions of humans were gathered around screens to watch their representative fight for their species' reputation. "No pressure," she said with a nervous smile, "but every human alive is counting." "On you?" Jake laughed, though he didn't feel much like laughing. Thanks for making me feel relaxed." The truth was, Jake felt more nervous than he had for any previous match. Kine represented everything the established galactic order believed about combat superiority. If Jake lost, it would prove that humans were just lucky newcomers who had gotten further than they deserved. When Jake walked into the arena, the noise was deafening. The crowd was split between those cheering for the human underdog and those supporting the established champion. Alien military observers watched through special equipment that could analyze every move and muscle twitch. Kine entered from the opposite side, and Jake felt his confidence shake. The alien was even more intimidating in person than in the videos. Each of his 4 arms was as thick as Jake's entire body. His eyes glowed red, and when he moved, the arena floor shook under his weight. "Human," Kine said in a voice like grinding. "Metal, you have impressed many with your victories. But now you face a true warrior. Prepare to learn the difference between luck and skill." The referee gave the signal to begin, and Kine immediately demonstrated why his species had ruled galactic combat for so long. He moved with impossible speed for something so large, attacking with all 4 arms in different patterns that should have been impossible to defend against. Jake found himself on the defensive for the first time since his opening match. Kine's combination of size, strength, speed, and experience created a challenge unlike anything Jake had faced. The alien's 4 arms meant he could attack and defend at the same time, making counterattacks nearly impossible. For 10 minutes, Jake barely survived. He dodged, blocked, and retreated, but couldn't find any openings to attack. The crowd began to murmur that perhaps the human had finally met his match. Kine was methodically wearing him down, and everyone could see it. But as the fight continued, something began to change. Jake stopped trying to fight like a human warrior and started fighting like every species he had encountered during the tournament. When Kine attacked like Thoric with overwhelming force, Jake responded with silexes, patience, and precision. When the alien tried Corda's speed tactics, Jake countered with Nexus Prime's calculated responses. The turning point came when Jake realized something important. Every species in the galaxy had achieved dominance through specialization. They had become the best at one particular type of combat. But humans had achieved dominance through adaptation. They could learn and change faster than any other species. Jake began incorporating techniques from every opponent he had faced, but not just copying them. He was combining them in ways that created entirely new fighting styles. He used thorax, aggressive charges combined with Vortex's unpredictability. He mixed Grimjaw's predatory instincts with Nexus Prime's logical precision. Kine had never faced anything like this. In 300 years of fighting, he had encountered every known combat style in the galaxy. But Jake was creating new styles in the middle of the match, adapting faster than Kine could respond. The crowd watched in amazement as the human began to turn the fight around. Jake's attacks became more creative and unexpected. He used the arena itself as a weapon, turned Kine's own strength against him, and most importantly, refused to give up even when the situation seemed hopeless. The end came suddenly. Kine, frustrated by Jake's constantly changing tactics, made the same mistake that had defeated all of Jake's previous opponents. He relied too heavily on what had always worked before. When Kine committed to a massive 4-armed attack that should have ended the fight, Jake was ready. Jake slipped between the alien's arms, got behind him, and applied a chokehold that combined techniques from 3 different fighting styles. Kine struggled for a moment, then collapsed unconscious to the arena floor. The arena fell completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The impossible had happened. A human had defeated the greatest warrior in galactic history. Then the cheering began. It started as a rumble from one section of the crowd and spread throughout the massive arena until it became a roar that could be heard from orbit. Jake Morrison had won the Galactic Combat Championship. As Jake stood in the center of the arena, holding the championship trophy, he could see the faces in the crowd. Some aliens cheered with genuine admiration. Others looked worried or even frightened. A few seemed angry that their established order had been disrupted. The victory ceremony was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Jake's speech was simple. This tournament has shown me that every species has something valuable to offer. Humans are honored to be part of the galactic community, and we look forward to learning from all of our new neighbors. But as Jake left the arena, he could see alien military officers and government representatives having urgent conversations. His victory had answered the question they came to investigate, but probably not in the way they had hoped. Lisa found him in his preparation room after the ceremony. "You did it, Jake. You're the champion. But more than that, you've changed everything." "For our species?" Jake nodded, looking at the trophy. "I just hope I've changed it for the better." Over the following days, as Jake prepared to return to Earth, the implications of his victory became clear. Some alien species began opening new diplomatic channels with humanity, interested in forming alliances with a species that had proven so adaptable. Others began making preparations for what they saw as an inevitable future conflict. The tournament had accomplished its real purpose. It had shown the galaxy that humans were not the primitive newcomers they appeared to be, but a species with the potential to reshape the balance of power among the stars. As Jake's ship left Centauri Prime, he looked back at the planet where everything had changed. He had won more than a championship. He had secured humanity's place as a major player in galactic affairs. Whether that would prove to be a blessing or a curse, only time would tell.